So we're jumping into our series. We're coming on the tail end of our summer series. Been kind of talking about what does a Christ follower look like? What does a Christ follower? How do you stand apart from the world? It's called sanctification. It's just meaning to be set apart for the use intended by the designer. We've kind of loosely umbrellaed kind of the 7 deadly sins this week. I kind of want to talk about an 8th one, and I was actually going to have Matt come up here. I had this great stage example. I was going to have some of our production team, and they were going to make my microphone kind of go in and out, and like last week, we kind of had some microphone problems, and I was going to have Matt come up. Funny. And I was going to have Matt come up, and I was actually going to chew Matt out. I was going to be like, dude, you got one job, and you know what? If you hadn't gone to Texas, you've been doing your job. And I was going to get really loud and really kind of chew him out a little bit and throw a microphone and all of this. And I had this great idea and this great plan, and so I asked my wife about it. And I'm guided by the Holy Spirit and the Holy Cassie. And I asked her, I said, do you think this would be a good idea? I said, I'm a little bit concerned that even my production team could take a little bit of a fix, because we've had some weeks that power's gone out, so I didn't want them to really think I was shooting at them. And then I knew that if I did that, like if I start screaming at somebody on stage, some of you, if you get on YouTube, there's some sadly funny videos of pastors that just lose it on stage. And I got to thinking, if I'm in the middle of that and I'm legitimately ripping into somebody and I'm screaming at Matt, that some of y'all may pack your stuff up and head out the door before I can get to the point where, it's a drama. And so I asked Cassie, and she said, you know what? She said, I think that's a little bit aggressive because honestly, Scott, it's going to open up some wounds if you start yelling and you start calling him names. And I don't know that you can circle back and close those wounds back in 30 minutes. And she's right, and here's the sad part. When it comes to this message last week, I was teaching on something that frankly, I wanted to show you that I struggle with some of the same things everybody else struggles. I think there's this perception that a pastor gets over. This is definitely what they teach in seminary, is that when you get up on stage, some of y'all caught that, when you get up on stage, you're not supposed to show any kind of weakness. You're supposed to show that you have it all together. And I think often a lot of us walk into a church, and we believe that as well. It's like if I show weakness, if I show that I'm struggling, people will think less of me, or somebody's going to pick up a rock and throw it at me. And I know there's a lot of rocks to be thrown, but I promised God a long time ago when I stepped into the pastoral side of ministry. Him and I had a conversation. I believe he's called me to be as authentic as possible, to talk about real stuff and real life. And I know even in the context of me asking my wife, if I bring somebody up here and I raise my voice and I say things that may sound degrading, or I say things that may belittle Matt, even though Matt knows that's not what I'm really doing, that she knows that it would open wounds to you, because frankly, she's had wounds. Because if there was a message that I was going to speak on that I struggle with, it's probably this one. I struggle with my mouth, and I know about 3 or 4 times a year I circle back to this topic. And one of the reasons I continue to circle back to it is because I truly believe that the Holy Spirit directs us, that if we don't fight this one constantly. 2 weeks ago we said we're going to shift. We're going to go from these are the sins to this is how you battle them. This is how you fight them. And so if we don't fight this one continuously, if we don't fight this one passionately, if we don't fight this one every single day, it, as many as any of them, has the propensity to destroy everything around us. And so this week, I want to do that. I want to talk about something I struggle with. So if you feel like I'm stepping on your toes, here's the truth of it. I'm not. All 10 fingers are pointing at me. And I used to get really concerned about that until I read last week, the Apostle Paul wrote, a lot of the New Testament. He said, I battle with it. I battle the things that I want to do, I don't do. The things that I don't want to do, I keep finding myself going back down those roads. And with my mouth, this probably speaks true to anything. I want to speak gracefulness. I want to extend grace through verbiage. I want people to know that I follow Christ through the words that I say, but oftentimes, whether it's at a baseball field or whether it's on Tuscaloosa Avenue in construction, or even in sometimes tense meetings, and sometimes with my children, and sometimes with my wife, there's times that stuff will just fly out. And I've worked for 15 years of our marriage to control that. I've spent a lot of time in the military, and my mouth can get the best of me, and I can get really aggressive, and I already sound barky, and I've really tried to work on that. Has anybody ever seen the movie Bad Boys 2? You know, when they walk into the house and Martin Lawrence is like, "We're your neighbors. Can we have some brown sugar?" Well, that's what I sound like when I try not to sound like me. I just sound weird. And so I know that oftentimes I could come across as aggressive. So I've worked really hard to tone all of that back. But even with all of that, this is a battle I feel like that all of us in the room, if we were honest with ourselves, we would say there are times that we allow the things that come out of our mouth to take people away from Christ and not point people to. In August, I'm doing a big relationship series, and one of those is on communication, so there's not a lot of stories I could tell without giving that one away. But here's something that is reminiscent of what I want to get across. So I love milk. I don't know what a lot of you think about milk. Y'all have different ideas of milk. When I talk about milk, a lot of people, they're not really in the middle. They're like, they're either like, I can't stand milk, or I love milk. Like, I know now they don't even have real milk. If you go to the grocery store, there's like almond milk and chocolate almond milk. I don't even know if there's chocolate almonds, but they got coconut milk, and they've got all these different kinds of milk. But I like milk. I like old-fashioned milk. My wife's father ran a dairy barn up in Iowa, and one of my favorite things was to take milk straight out the bulk tank, and you could scrape the cream off the top and drink cold milk right out I love cold milk. And so when milk is in the refrigerator, there's a lot of times I eat cereal at night, and I love milk. And there's sometimes that I'll go to the refrigerator, and a lot of people drink water. I like to drink milk sometimes when I'm thirsty. And early in our relationship, this was pre-DVR, when you had to like jump up during the commercials, run to the refrigerator, and try to time it and make it back before the show started. Anybody know what I'm talking about? I know this group doesn't. But, and so I was really thirsty, and I was eating some keto chocolate chip cookies, and while I was eating them, I thought, I need something to drink. And so I jumped up off the couch. We were watching a show, and the show was going on, and I jump up and I run to the fridge. I'm in a hurry, and I reach into the refrigerator, and I grab the cold milk, and I'm like, don't ever drink milk at my house, because I drink out of the jug. Get over it. Anyway, and so I grabbed the milk, and all I really needed was a few swallows just to get the cookies down. And so I grabbed the milk, and I took the lid off, and I chugged it, and I'm like, oh, the cool, refreshing. That was my first thought. And then about the third thought is something's not right. Something's not right. Because smooth, cold milk goes down amazing. I already have a texture issue when I eat. Chunky buttermilk-ish cottage cheese milk does not flow down. And so about 3, my brain registered something's really not right. By the 5th swallow, my stomach reinforced what my brain said. And I looked with a mouthful of cheese curds, and I had grabbed a jug of milk that had been there for a while. And I made it to the sink, and not to get into that. That was not a pleasant experience. All those amazing keto cookies came up, but I lost weight. Here's the funny part of that. It's a funny story. But when we look at the way we talk, Jesus actually talks about the things that we often spew out of our mouths. If you got your Bible this morning, turn with me. We're going to be in Matthew chapter 15, first book, New Testament. Go to the middle, hang a right, it's where we're going to be. I'm in the New Living Translation. It's just one I can understand easier. We also have it on some apps, but we're going to put it on the screen for you. Some Pharisees and teachers of religious law now arrived from Jerusalem to see Jesus. They asked him, "Why do your disciples disobey our age-old tradition? For they ignore our tradition of ceremonial hand washing before they eat." Before they ate, they were supposed to do this ceremonial hand washing, and Jesus' disciples didn't do it. And why do you, by your traditions, violate the direct commandments of God? Is how Jesus responded to them. For instance, God says, "Honor your father and mother," and anyone who speaks disrespectfully of their father or mother must be put to death. That's harsh. But you say it is all right for people to say to their parents, "Sorry, I can't help you, for I have vowed to give to God what I would have given to you." And this way, you say they don't need to honor their parents, and so you cancel the word of God for the sake of your own tradition. That's a whole different message. You hypocrites. Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you, for he wrote, "These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. Their worship is a farce, for they teach man-made ideas as commanded by God." Then Jesus called to the crowd to come and hear. "Listen," he said, "and try to understand." He's getting ready. He's like, "Hey, focus." This is one of those that said, "Listen, pay attention. This is a big deal. It's not what goes into your mouth that defiles you. You are defiled by the words that come out of your mouth." It would be like spewing out of your mouth. Then the disciples came to him and they asked, do you realize you offended the Pharisees by what you said?" To which Jesus said, "Every plant not planted by my heavenly Father will be uprooted, so ignore them. They're blind guides leading the blind. And if one blind person guides another, they will both fall into a ditch." Then Peter said to Jesus, "Explain to us the parable that says people aren't defiled by what they eat. Don't you understand?" Jesus said, "Anything you eat passes through the stomach, then goes into the sewer. But the words you speak come from the heart. That's what defiles you. For from the heart comes evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, lying, slander. These are what defile you. Eating with unwashed hands will never defile you." So we've been kind of looking at 7 deadly sins, but the way Jesus teaches it is a lot of those sins are actually known through what comes out of our mouth, our heart. What we feel in our heart comes out of our mouth. Jesus says it's not what goes into your mouth. It's not what you eat, but it's actually what comes out that defiles you. What comes out will actually, to the people around you, give them the opinion and the determination of if you follow Christ or not. And so what we've been talking about is what does it look like to be a Christ follower set apart from the world. If you're not a Christ follower in here, hey, welcome. We love having you in here kicking the tires. This is one of those messages that can help us all in life. In the 9th grade, I had a project that my parents helped me with. We had to do this project on endangered species, and I chose the gray wolf. I don't even know if it's still endangered, but I did a lot of research on the gray wolf. And some of the things that I learned about the gray wolf is the way they howl, the way they communicate. The gray wolf actually communicates in more ways than almost any animal out there. And one of the ways that they communicate is they howl. And if you listen to a pack of wolves, none of them howl the same. It's actually called dissonance. It's what we would call pitchy. If you watch American Idol, Simon Cowell says, "Oh, you were pitchy." Well, that's how wolves howl. The reason that they howl pitchy is because when you get a group of them together and they get really pitchy, it makes them sound like they're either more or it makes them sound like they're more aggressive. And so when you get a group of pitchy wolves, it changes the dynamic. It can be used for defense and it can be used for offense. They also communicate with a lot of body language, with hugs and touches, and the way that they use their tails to constantly touch each other. It's the way they communicate. And wolves actually use very unique facial expressions within their own group to communicate. Outside wolves wouldn't use the same. It's considered unique. There were a group of men who lived with wolves for 6 years. And they said the amount of communication that you learn from a wolf through body language and through facial expressions and through them howling together would shock you. They're constantly interacting with each other. Everything they do is about communicating with the group. They affirm their family bonds. They affirm their group by their communication. If you flip that over, humans are a lot the same way. You see, wolves are able to stay united as a pack because of the way that they communicate to each other. Flip that into us. We're able to stay united oftentimes by the way we speak into each other. Let's correlate that into some situation. Marriages able to stay together because of the way that you communicate with each other. So many marriages are torn apart by the way that you communicate with each other. Parents and children's long-term bonds strengthened, uplifted, long-term family bonds built on the way we communicate, both with body language and affection and touch and facial expressions and verbiage. Unity built around communications, friendships, family. How many of you, and don't raise your hand on this, how many of you have been to a family reunion or a family get-together and everything is so tense and things blow up and it all boils down to disunity within the family because of the way we communicate with each other? Even churches as a whole, not even speaking individually, but churches have split and grown apart and had so much disunity based on the way that they communicate with each other. Like the wolf, family bonds are strengthened by communication. Experts say this. They said, on average, we speak 5,000 words a day. Some of y'all skew that. Some of you speak 500, and some of you never stop talking, so that the average is 5,000, right? But here's a crazy stat. 93% of our communication is nonverbal. 93% of our communication is nonverbal. What that means is 93% of our communication is based on body language. 93% of our communication is based on facial expressions. 93% of our communication is based on touching or hugging or shaking hands or high-fiving. 93% of our communication is nonverbal. And in a world full of text, even communication has changed dynamics. I've said this up here before. I am a horrible texter. I'm probably a horrible communicator 101 because of my tone and my barkiness, but texting, I'm awful. One, I tried to speak into my phone and text, and that just creates all kind of havoc. But two, I got fat thumbs, and I always text, and it never lands right. And I'm really short in my text because I don't text well. So then I got people who think I'm being short with them or I'm upset. So then I started adding emojis, which there's 4,322 emojis you can put on there. I actually know what 3 of them mean. My wife got on to me because I sent a really big smiley face one, which I thought meant I was really happy. And she was like, that's not what that means. And I'm like, and then I sent one that squinted the eyes and smiled just because I thought it was funny. And that's not what that means. But we communicate through text, and it's so easy to have miscommunication through text because you can't see face. If 93% is nonverbal, that means 7% of what you typed and 93% of inflection they can't see. They can't see my facial expression. They can't see that I'm joking. They can see an emoji, and I may or may not even get that right. They can see an exclamation point. We all know what that means. Send me an exclamation point. I'll be like, oh, no, you didn't. But we communicate even today in different ways. Even though, with all of these pitfalls, even though that 93% of our communication is nonverbal, that 7% of words that come out of our mouth are weighty. I would argue that the 7% carries more weight than the 93. The words that come out of our mouth are weighty. Matthew 12, verse 36 says it like this. And I tell you this, you will give an account on judgment day for every idle word you speak. Now I want you to I want y'all to pretend with me. Again, I watch too much TV probably. Y'all ever seen Bruce Almighty? He opens a filing cabinet and it shoves him all the way across the room. Think about this for a second. If every word that you've ever said, I don't even want to go down this road in my brain. If every word I've ever said to anybody, if every word I've ever said to an umpire, if every word I've said to my wife, if every word I've said to my kids, if every word I've said around a dinner table about somebody, even though nobody else heard, if every word I said that I thought nobody was listening, if every word I said in my truck at the person that cut me off, if every word I said was recorded and played back, that's what heaven looks like. The Bible says we will be accountable for every idle word we say. I want you to take 5 seconds and reflect on every word you've said this week. Now go back in history. Go back to your pre-Jesus days. Go back to your college days. Go back to the most angry and frustrated you've ever been days. And he starts to go, wow, if every word I'm going to be held accountable, you want to talk about weight. You want to talk about weight, and there is forgiveness of it. But it does say we will be held accountable. The Bible is full of passages over and over. And typically when you preach about the words you say, you read the passages that talk about your tongue is like it controls an entire ship like a rudder. It talks about a bit in a horse's mouth. It's like this little bitty thing that can control a lot of big things. They're weighty. Our words are weighty. So as Christ followers, there's a few verses that I found, and one is just great advice. Ephesians 4:29, it says, don't use foul or abusive language. Let everything you say, everybody say everything. There's your standard. Let everything you say be good and helpful so that your words can be an encouragement. Say encouragement to those who hear them. Now let's think back to the last week and the words that we're going to be held accountable for. And let's look at Scripture and let's ask ourselves. I'm going to ask myself this. Did everything I say, was it good? Was it helpful? And did it bring encouragement? I don't know about you, but my answer is no. And I'm going to be held accountable for that. Colossians 4:6 says, let your speech always, say always. Again, there's a standard. It doesn't say sometimes. It doesn't say when you feel good. It doesn't say when you're happy. It doesn't say when traffic's good. It says, let your speech always be with grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know you ought to answer to each one. I've taught on the words we speak so many times, and I don't know that I've ever actually used this verse. I came across it in some of my study, and I got really intrigued by this verse. Let your speech always be with grace. You know, I've heard it always be helpful, always be encouraging, always be uplifting. But this says, let your speech always be with grace. So I looked up the definition of grace based in the Christian context. Free and unmerited favor of God. Our speech should be free, unmerited favor of God. Are the words coming out of our mouth showing favor from God? As a Christian, Are the words that are coming out of our mouth, simply put, are they Christ-like? As a disciple is a student of Christ. Is it the way Christ spoke? And then it said as a verb to honor someone. Are the words that are coming out of our mouths, are they honoring? Are they honoring to our parents? Are they honoring to our family? Are they honoring to our coworkers? Are they honoring to our teachers? Are they honoring to our law enforcement? Are they honoring to our political leaders? Are they honoring? Is your tone with grace? You see, there's this very simple phrase that you can use based on tone and body language. Is your tone with grace? Is your body language with grace? Is it with unmerited favor? So like you could sit there and you could be talking to your child and on a baseball field. And I'll just use my example. All right, I'll use my example because I coached my children a long time. And so I can look at my kids and I'll be like, hey, come on. Man, you can do it. Come on. See, body language, whoa, you got this. Come on, you keep throwing them strikes, right? Or I can look at them and be like, come on. Are you kidding me? Seriously. See, come on. Come on. You can do it. Come on. Pull it together. Same words, different communication. Is our tone filled with grace? Let me ask you something. Somebody comes at you hard. Somebody rips into you. You walk in, your boss rips into you. Do you respond with grace? You know, I wonder if he's having a bad day. You know, I wonder what's going on in his life because he's normally not like that. So, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give him a little bit of time to calm down, and then I'm going to go pray for him. See, that's what this says. It says, are your words filled with grace, or do you fire back? You can't talk to me like that. Right? Are our words filled with grace? Is your gossip representative of grace? Is your gossip representative of grace? Are you giving them the benefit of the doubt when you talk about them? And is it your battle or your business to talk about? Well, you know what? I saw them over. Well, you know what? Maybe they were over there for a reason. Is it filled with grace? Is your negativity conveying grace? Just because it's not your way doesn't mean it's your wrong way. This is one I struggle with because I'm always right. Just ask my wife. Right? Well, I'm not always right. She's got a way to do things. I got a way to do things. But is my tone to her filled with grace? Is my negativity to her filled with grace? Is your volume filled with grace? Is grace really loud, condescending, and aggressive? Or is grace meek and humble and trying to get to the end result in a Christ-like manner? And here's why all of that's important is because your words impact other people. Your words impact other people. We are such a sarcastic society. We really are. We're a sarcastic, mocking, negative culture. Don't believe me? Turn on any news channel. Don't believe me? Open up any social media platform. We are a sarcastic nation. We can be so quick to be sarcastic or to be negative. And the reason is because it makes us feel better. Because if I can mock you, I don't have to look at my own stuff. Right? We can say things and then we wrap it around because we see sometimes our words hurt and then it might make us actually look bad. It's not that we really care that our words hurt, but it might make us look bad. And we'll say stuff and then we'll justify it like this. Oh, you know what? It's cool. I was just messing around. I was just kidding. Of course I didn't mean that. No offense, bro. My bad. It was just a joke. You totally rip into somebody. You totally eviscerate somebody. You totally mock somebody. And maybe you are joking. But how did they take that? You see, I know if I had done my example with Matt and I had started screaming at Matt and saying, you know what, you're worthless. Can't you do your job? Can't you be more like? You see, that opens up scabs to so many of us. Because somebody in our life has talked to us condescendingly. Somebody has cut. Somebody has eviscerated. You know what? Nice outfit. 80s are calling. Huh? You might be joking, but what is that doing to the person? You know what? Hey, great job. Did you write that with a crayon? You might be joking, But is that with grace? Is that encouraging? Is that lifting up? You see, oftentimes we hide our sarcasm, we hide our tone, we hide all of that, and we justify it. But the truth is, it can drastically affect someone. That outfit, the job they did, walking into a situation, walking into work. You can walk in and pop off first thing when you walk in. You've totally sent somebody's day sideways. The words we have are weighty. Your kids get home from school, that first 30 minutes, they walk in the door. If you're on them, what's that going to do? Right before they walk out the door, you're on them. What's that going to do? You know, I watch school shootings go on and on and on, and I take my kids to school. I don't let them ride the bus, and here's why. Because when I pull up, I want the last words they hear to be, I love you. Because they're walking into a negative situation. They're walking into a brutal, mean situation. Or at least it was in my school. And so I want them to know that they're loved and they're valued. Here's a tool for you. Let the first 30 minutes don't say anything negative when they walk in the door. When your spouse gets home from work, don't say anything negative for the first 30 minutes. When you walk into work, don't say anything negative for the first 30 minutes. When you get a text that really offends you, don't say anything about it for the first 30 minutes. When you get a phone call and somebody rips into you, don't respond for 30 minutes. Breathe. And then pray. And give yourself time to answer with words that are filled with grace. And here's why. Because your words impact future. Your words impact future. This is a really stupid example. But I'm going to give you one of mine. And some of you are going to walk up after this church and you're going to try to be all so compassionate. Please don't. I have a dimple on my chin. I wear a beard and a mustache. Even when I was getting chemo and I looked like I had the mange, I kept a goatee. It was kind of a half goatee, but it's very amusing. But I wear a beard. And here's why. Because growing up, I have a dimple in my chin. And somewhere in the elementary school days, on a playground, somebody thought it would be funny, and they were joking. You know, they didn't really mean it. But they used the verbiage butt chin. It's funny. Until it's your butt chin. And it stuck with me. And then when they figured out that it bothered me, it was the pile on. It was the pile on. I'm 42 years old. And I wear a goatee. Not because it's cool, not because it's in style, but because a third grader that I haven't seen since 1993, whenever we graduated, said something in 1984 that still bothers me today. It affected my future. And that sounds stupid, right? Because that's my chin. But when you start looking back at some words that have been spoken over you, let's look at a bigger example. You know, you're never going to amount to anything. Somebody says that, a boss says it, a coworker says it, a parent says it, a coach says it, sticks with you. That's a stupid dream. Be realistic. You've just impacted somebody's future. Who knows? They may have become an astronaut. But the words that we said affected their future. Why can't you be more like them? You want to talk about trashing somebody's identity? God created them to be who they were. They don't need to be like them. They need to be who God created them to be. But you can affect their insecurity to the point. Should you really be eating that? I mean, you know. Probably I look like that girl on the magazine cover, you know. Hey, you know what? You could stand to lose a few pounds. What does that do? Devalues you. Devalues you. If all you do is complain, why can't you? Why don't you? Nothing's ever good enough. Well, I'm obviously can't meet any expectations. So then I go to school and I get bad grades and I just assume I'm going to because I've been told my whole life that I was, you know, why can't you just? I wasn't. These are examples. My parents were very passionate about my grades. My parents were very positive to me, but even within the playgrounds, even within the gyms, even on the ball fields, even in the workplaces, even in the military, words we say can affect a future. And oftentimes we justify it. Well, I'm just trying to help out. I've just got higher standards. There's a good reason for it. But here's an even bigger scale. If you said your words were weighty, and what if somebody ended up in hell because of something you said? Well, Pastor, you can't put that on us. Well, what if somebody walks into the church and you say, should you really be wearing that? Maybe that's all they got to wear. And they walk out and they never walk in again. What if you say something to somebody who's struggling and they're really looking for hope and they're really looking at, and I look at the abortion world in this way, that young lady that walks out and she made a huge mistake that's going to affect her the rest of her life, and she's got somebody out there screaming that you're going to go to hell and you're not loved and you're this and you're that, and rather than walk into a church, in the one place that she can find hope and healing, she never walks into a church again. You see, our words affect the future. Our words affect the future, even nonverbal communication. What are you doing here? You believe they're in church? What are you doing here? Why are you in my class? I mean, it's kind of a deeper class, right? You should probably go check out that one, right? It's my chair, my parking lot, my area, my group, my class. You're really not invited. We don't say it, but oftentimes we vibe that, and they walk out because they don't feel loved. They don't feel connected. They never walk back into a church again. And they've never found the salvation of Christ. And as we stand in front of heaven and we're given an account for every word that we say, and we look across the chasm that they talk about in the Bible, where the young man is screaming, just touch my tongue. What if the person screaming, just touch my tongue with water, is one that God intersected us with? And our words took them further from Christ. Our words are weighty. You don't fit in church conveys you don't fit in heaven. Ouch. So what do we do with that? The weight is on us. Here's why God also thinks it's a big deal. Because words impact you. Your words impact you. If you're talking negative, you're going to feel negative. Right? If you're speaking in anger, your heart's going to be in anger. Your emotions, your heart, your spirit, the words you use and the words you allow into your life directly affect you. Don't believe me? What you allow in affects your heart. What you allow in affects how you feel about others. What you allow in affects how you feel about situations. And I want to encourage you. Stop fighting battles that aren't yours. Stop fighting battles that aren't yours. If you're trying to control others, you're fighting the wrong battle. And it's affecting you. Their words into you, your words into them, create emotions within you that you normally wouldn't have. Some of us spend so much time and energy arguing and battling and going back and forth and using words on social media platforms with somebody in Utah, that when we get home and the very people God created us to take care of within our own home, we don't have the emotion or the words to even communicate with them. Because we've expended it on battles that aren't even ours to have. By the time God entrusts us with the people who need us the most, we've expended all of our energy, all of our emotions, or we've allowed our words to dictate our attitude. So the thing that we're mad at with somebody we don't know is now affecting the people that we love the most. Wow. That person on the internet that you don't know can affect the friendship that you have. The fake friends are affecting our real friends. Right? It's not my job to change the White House. It's my job to change the red house. The red brick house that I live in with 4 children and a wife. So when you look at 5,000 words, if I spend 4,800 of them on battles that aren't mine, I'm shortchanging the ones that God's entrusted with me. Letting false relationships impact real relationships. Expending energy on battles that I don't even need to be in. I'm not instructed to tear down the leadership of our country. I'm actually instructed to pray for the leadership of our country. And for all of you who love the leadership of our country now and you're beating your chest, you were instructed to pray for the last guy. Instead of tearing him down and becoming so negative and becoming so so bitter in your soul? See, here's the deal. It's hard to be negative when you're speaking positive. It's hard to be angry when you're speaking life. It's not my job to patrol Facebook. It's not my job to comment on every single thing that everybody posts. We don't need extra drama. But yet we spend so much of our communication on drama that's not even ours. And the very people that need us the most, we have nothing left to give. You see, here's what I know. You're not going to do things the way I do things. That's okay. Doesn't make it wrong. It's not my fight. We're not going to argue about it. You don't do it the way I would do it. You don't parent the way I would parent. You don't cook the way I would cook. You don't do laundry the way I would do laundry. I mean, if my wife, after 15 years of marriage, has not figured out how to fold towels correctly, I'm not a petty man. But is that really worth a fight? No, because it's not wrong. And so rather than speak negative, and rather than continue to tear marriages apart one paper cut at a time, uplift. Wow, babe. Thanks for doing that laundry. You see, you can't control others. It's not your job. Your job is to love. And your job is to point people to Christ. And I say this before, and I'm going to say it again. If you're not part of the problem, you're not part of the solution, don't be part of the conversation. And if you can't say who told you, it's called gossip. Don't be part of it. I ask myself, why do people feel comfortable coming to me to gossip? Is there something in me that radiates, hey, I need drama? And I hope not, and I pray not. And there's times that I let myself get caught up in the vortex of that tornado and that hurricane. This is a topic that as a family, we need to fight constantly, because the enemy will get into your marriage. The enemy will get into your parenting. The enemy will get into our church. The enemy will get into your friendships. The enemy will get into your job. And he'll do it through our mouths. And so as a Christ follower, to be set apart, the process of sanctification, to be used in the way that the Creator intended, we need to speak in the way that represents our Creator. And so I want to challenge you this week. If you said every word that comes out of my mouth, I'm going to be accountable for, start paying attention to what comes out of your mouth. If you can't communicate in a loving, encouraging way, maybe don't communicate. If you can't be uplifting, maybe it doesn't need to be said. If you've got an issue, rather than taking it to Facebook or rather than taking it to the 14 people that you know, take it to the one that you have the issue with. Communicate with them. Then ask this question, is this my problem to even have? I need to focus my communication on the ones that I'm entrusted with. Romans 12:18 says, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you. See, last week we talked about personal responsibility. This is the battlefield that you control 100%. You control what comes out of your mouth. You speak, you control. If it is possible, as far as it depends on me, live at peace with everyone. The peace of another person is not necessarily my responsibility. The peace of myself and how I represent Christ is 100% on me. 100%. As much as it is possible, I'm going to live at peace. As much as it is possible, I'm going to speak encouragement. As much as it is possible, I'm going to speak life-giving. Let everything I say, God, this is my prayer this week. Let everything I say be good and helpful, so that words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. God, let everything that I say be good and helpful, so that it points people to Christ. God, let everything that I say be filled with grace. And here's why. Because when you and I are communicating, I need your grace. Because there's days I say stupid things. 7,000 words a day is probably my average. And there's going to be days that I say it wrong. There's going to be days that I say it aggressively. There's going to be days that I say it with tone. There's going to be days when I say it with hand expression. There's going to be days when you do it. And so, God, this week, my prayer is, God, let everything that comes out of my mouth be encouraging, be helpful, and be full of grace. As a Christ follower, we're called to be set apart. The world is a critical, sarcastic, negative, demeaning place right now. Let's be different. Let's be different. As a church, let's do it different. Let's lift up other churches. Let's lift up other brothers. Let's do it the way that God says. This week, my challenge to you is this. Be encouraging, be helpful, and be full of grace in your home and out of it. Can we work on that together? Sanctification is a process, and this is one I need a lot of prayer on. But I'm going to commit to this week to do it that way. Will y'all commit with me? Bow your head. God, this morning, I hate this message because this message directly is aimed at me. God, I let myself get caught up in drama. The devil's been doing a tap dance. And I'm sorry. God, my words haven't been pleasing. And oftentimes my words don't point people to you. So God, I pray that this week, as I weigh my words, that you show me when to speak, when to hold my tongue. God, that you give me the wisdom to speak encouragement. That God, you put people in my path that a kind word can be helpful to. But that God, more than anything, that my speech represents grace. The grace that you extend to me. God, as Christ followers, as a church, as the pastor, I pray that our church looks different and sounds different. That we extend grace to each other. That we're going to make mistakes and we're going to say things we shouldn't. But that God, that our words can extend grace to each other, even in tense situations. But God, more than that, that our words bring people to you. That when people hear our church speak, they go, man, that's uplifting. In a world that is so negative, that God, they see the light of your house. That they see the grace of your house. God, allow me to extend grace the way it was extended. God, I pray this morning if there's somebody in here that doesn't know you and they've heard this. Maybe they've been burnt by a guy like me. Maybe they've been talked down to by somebody who wasn't in a healthy place. Maybe they've been in a church that had a lot of hurt based on words and things that were said. That God, I pray that you heal them. I pray that those who have grown up with words that have affected their future, that God, you allow them to forgive. But that God, you allow them to know that their identity isn't what somebody else said over them, but their identity is what you say about them. That they are a child of you. That they're beautifully and wonderfully made. That they're a prince and a princess of the Most High God. And God, I pray that you heal wounds. And I pray if somebody stepped away from church and they're kind of kicking the tires, God, I pray that we serve and represent you well. And that they accept you. It's all about you. It's about your kingdom. Your kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven.